Howdy ho there, friends and neighbors. Bobby here today. Hey folks, today I want to show you my little circular saw here. I want to do a demonstration on it as to how to use a circular saw. And we'll also do a little review on this Porter Cable brand right here. I've had this one for several years. It's a good little saw. First of all, we'll talk about some of the adjustments and so forth on it. There is an adjustment where you can bring the blade either further away from the base or closer down. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. There's a lever right here. I don't know if you can see this lever that I'm moving up and down. You can flip it up, and then from that point you can actually adjust the base of the saw to where you can have very little of the blade sticking out all the way up to about 2.5 inches of the blade sticking out. And that's very handy to use, and when I demonstrate this I'll show you the reason why you need that adjustment from time to time. Right now we're just going to bring it all the way down, and we'll lock that back in place by pushing down on that. Another adjustment on it is the angle. As you look right here, there's a lever that you can turn, and you can swivel the plate on here all the way up to a 45-degree angle in case you have to cut something at an angle. As you can see, the angle of the blade there. Okay, so let's just move this back to 0, because with the cuts that we're going to be making today, we will need it dead on 0. All right, I want to show you one more thing right quick on using this saw. If you had to change the blade on it, okay, the little adjuster wrench slides right down into the handle here, and what you'll do right over here, there's a little button that you push, and you can actually, you got to hold it down and rotate the saw blade until it locks the motor right there. Okay, in the lock position, you can reach through here and break the nut loose on the blade, and we'll go ahead and just we'll take this blade off, show you how to remove it. Now friends, the saw is definitely unplugged at this time, okay? And make sure the saw is unplugged at any time that you're changing the blade. There's a little washer here. You want to lay it out of the way. And then from that point, you can go ahead and pull your guard up, and you can take your blade off, and you can change it with another one. Like right here, I got one that's a little bit finer blade right here for cutting some finishing molding or whatever you would have. It's got a little bit smaller tooth on it, but actually we're not going to use that today. We're just going to put this blade just right back on here. Now notice the way that the teeth go, okay? The saw turns this way, and you want the teeth pointing that way. I've seen people before stick a blade on backwards. Well, it's not going to do very much cutting that way. So remember, you always want to have the teeth facing toward the direction that it turns. A lot of times they're marked on the blade. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put our washer back in place. We're going to put our bolt back in place. We're going to tighten it down just with our fingers here. We're going to take our wrench and slide it right back on there. Reach around here, make sure our motor is still locked, and I believe it is. We're going to go ahead and, no, actually it's not locked. Let me spin it back around until it locks in the little lever again. Am I pushing on the right thing? No, I guess I'm not. There we go. Now the motor's locked. We'll take our wrench and we will snug this bolt back up. You don't have to go crazy with it, okay? Just want to snug it back down. Okay. Okay friends, hey, we got the blade back on the saw. We got it plugged in. We're ready to actually do some sawing. Notice that I am wearing some safety glasses. I do recommend always wearing safety glasses when you're using a circular saw. First thing we're going to do, we're just going to make a regular old standard cross cut across here. We're just going to cut this knot right here off. I'm not even going to measure a line or anything. We've got the plate here set on 0 degrees. We've got our blade set, deep enough to where it's definitely going to cut all the way through here. So I'm just going to use a square right up against my deck of the saw here, and we're just going to use it as a guide, and we're just going to go ahead and make a cross cut. Okay, now let's just do an angle cut here. We're going to go ahead and adjust our plate, and we'll move it to about, we'll just say about 25 degrees right there. We're going to tighten our plate back down, and we're going to use our square in the same fashion, and we're going to go ahead and hold it up against the base and make our cut. And as you can see, there's an angle cut on the end of this 2x4. Okay, let's go ahead and set our deck back at 0 once again. And we'll tighten that down. I'm going to show you another thing that you can do with a circular saw. What we've just done is 2 cross cuts, but we're going to actually rip this 2x4 here. So let me just set the saw right here. I'm going to make a mark. Show you a little trick I learned from my dad years ago. And what we're going to do, we're just going to we'll eyeball this in the center. And I'm just going to actually kind of square this little mark right here, kind of get me a line going here. Now what I'm going to do is actually rip this 2x4. I popped a nail down here on the other end just to hold it to the saw buck, because typically you will need a helper when you're ripping. But what you want to do is go ahead and adjust your blade to the depth of about the 2x4 that you're using. Come down here on the side, drop down a little bit so that people can see what I'm talking about. We'll move your guard up a minute to where your blade just goes through the 2x4 about 1/4 inch. You'll get the maximum power or cutting ability of that saw blade when you have it set about like that, okay? So what we're going to do now is I'm actually going to rip this 2x4. I'll rip it up to about right here, okay? Now, I will start the saw and kind of run into my line a little bit, make sure I'm dead on the line that I marked. Now come right over here. This is the trick I learned from my dad. If you'll take your finger and put it right up against the blade and you'll use your finger as a guide, you can take off and rip all the way down this 2x4, and when you get to the other end, it'll still be that thickness the whole way. So let's go. Friends, we'll take our tape measure, and as you see, we're about 1 3/4 inches right there. We'll come right down here where we stop sawing at, and look at there, we're about 1 3/4 inches. That little trick works great. Might take you a little while to get used to doing that, but that helps with ripping 2x4s and so forth. Okay, friends, hey, I'm going to show you how to actually measure and mark something and square it and actually cut it. So I'm going, from the end of this 2x4, I'm just going to mark it 36 inches, okay? So we've marked that. Now we're going to take our square, our little speed square here, and we're going to square it, mark it with a pencil, and we're going to grab our saw. Now friends, notice this time I'm going to be cutting left-handed, okay? This is actually a right-handed saw, okay? And you notice that the 2 cuts, all 3 of the cuts that I made on the other end, I made them right-handed. But I'm actually left-handed. And I grew up doing construction work with my dad, and all he had was right-handed saws. But I actually kind of learned being left-handed. I've done most of my sawing left-handed. Now, sometimes it'll kick a little bit more sawdust in your face when you do it this way. That's why it's always good to have these glasses on. But it's just a technique that I kind of, naturally developed. Most time when I do cross cuts on stuff, I'm doing it left-handed. They do make left-handed saws. You can purchase one, but I grew up, learned how to use a right-handed saw, and so this saw here, the last one I bought it right-handed. I'm just used to doing my thing this way. But anyway, we'll go ahead and make this cut. Now, I can actually see that blade. And I will actually turn it into there, and I can see, if you look right there, my blade, I'm leaving my mark, okay? Because if you mark something, I want this exactly 36 inches. I don't want to saw away my mark here, because then my board will be less than 36 inches long. So I want to make sure I keep the blade on this side of the mark. And I'm actually going to just watch it as I go on this one. If I wanted to, I could use my speed square like I showed you on the other end as a kind of a guide to stay straight. But I'm just going to wing it by hand, and we'll see what it looks like when I'm done. All right, let's just go ahead and take my 2x4 here and let's measure it and see how it turned out. Let's see if it's 36 inches. And if you look, it's dead on the money, 36 inches long. Okay friends, I hope you enjoyed our little video today on how to use a circular saw. And once again, this Porter cable is actually a pretty decent brand saw. I've had this one for several years. I believe they bought out Rockwell years ago. Both the saws that my dad used back when we used to do construction work were Rockwells. And so I'll try to find one, put a link down below in case you want to purchase one yourself. And thank you for watching the video. Hope you have a great day. Come back and see us tomorrow. Take care.